It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, did you change your number today?
I was number 258 and I changed it to 256. It's just a more round number. I wish I could get as upset about number changes as some people are. It seems like a thing that I feel like I was obsessed with when I was in high school and I was playing sports. But now that I'm an adult and I follow sports obviously pretty closely, the jersey number, like, it doesn't mean anything to me, like, while we're in season or while a player is playing, right? Like, it seems kind of a silly thing to get angry about. It's just my opinion. Yeah. I mean, I care about jerseys because I think they look really cool, as you can tell by the jerseys behind me. Yeah. I'm not worried about a jersey up for a guy that's only going to be here one more year. It's just not that big of a deal. Wow. You're really taking shots at Donovan Wilson. Poor Donovan. I actually, a lot of people today, Landon, asked us to comment about the Jalen Smith situation changing from number 54 to 9. We're not going to do that because we have far more important things to do, like talk about fake trades and guys that the Cowboys probably won't sign. So just to show you the priority level that jersey number changes have in our hearts. It's not very high. Yeah, I mean, I actually think the 9 kind of looks cool on Jalen. Not gonna lie. It doesn't matter to me. The Romo, I think the Romo side is getting some people, but honestly, guys, like, they don't retire numbers. Yeah, it really isn't that big of a deal. All right, let's get to Twitter questions, Landon. This first one comes from JJ. It's a really good question. Who are a couple dark horses that you could see making the Cowboys 53-man roster? I thought about this question a lot today. And I was thinking of maybe some of the running backs, because after the top 2, it's a pretty shallow depth chart. So maybe your guy from Tiffin makes the roster. Any other spots that, you could see some dark horse guys? I think the spots where there's just decided talent. I think, cornerback could be a spot where one of these guys, like maybe Canada or someone, makes it over someone we expect. Safety seems wide open, so that's a good one. Yep. Yeah, I think that there could potentially be somebody that either just plays really well and they keep on the team, or maybe they bring in somebody that they really like, or, I think, the spots where surprise is going to happen, right, is more likely, I think, on the defensive side of the ball. I think you're right to point out running back, just because that, the kind of bottom of the roster spots aren't quite settled. But I mean, even at wide receiver and tight end, like, we kind of know the candidates and what their odds are. So I don't know that there's like a ton of opportunity for there to be surprise there. Well, don't you feel like 46 of the 53 spots are filled already? Sure. Yeah. I mean, probably, for a large, maybe even more than that. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's more about, training camp is going to be more about fighting for position and fighting for playing time and that sort of thing. So the guys that are you talk about for surprise, to make the team, they may not even be on the team yet. They may not, they may be further down on the rosters, at least further down on the depth chart that we are perceiving them making a really big leap, with their play during training camp. And like I said, I mean, defensive tackle, safety, cornerback, the spots where we feel like there is it isn't settled by any stretch of the imagination in the depth chart. I think those are the spots where you could see surprise people come up and take those spots and earn a spot when we didn't expect them to.
I also believe this is going to be a year where you see more guys grab from other teams' rosters at cut down days, right? Because last year it was really hard, Landon, because we only had a few training camp practices and then there was no preseason. So we didn't get a chance to see, some of these guys that were, playing at or on teams with loaded depth charts at certain positions. I would not be surprised if the Cowboys claim 3, 4, 5 guys, for the bottom of the roster. And you mentioned some of the spots, right? Maybe corner, maybe safety. I think defensive end is also kind of intriguing. After Lawrence and Gregory, there's just a lot of unknown. I mean, obviously they have guys they like in Terrell Basham and Dorrance Armstrong and Bradley.
They have numbers there. They've
got numbers, but if
no one specifically earned a spot, right?
Right. If they can feel like they could, if they can upgrade that spot through, waivers, maybe they do that as well. I think that's where the surprises are going to come, not necessarily a guy taking a spot that we haven't really accounted for yet. Let's get into some more questions, Landon. This is a really good one from Will. Where do you rank Kellen Moore among play callers, and where do you think he still has room to grow? This is a really good question, and I want to answer it now, but I also think this is a good one we need to talk about with our friend Daniel Houston at Cowboys Stats, because I would love to hear his take on it. But where do you think Moore ranks right now for play callers?
I think after last season, I'm ranking him a little bit higher than I had previously. I think he really did show you something, and with all the things that they had to go through last year with the injuries and the adjustments that they were making, and just the way that they continue to play aggressive with their play calling, and especially on early downs. I think they were one of the better teams as far as throwing early and going for it on situations where other teams may not. I'd rank him somewhere in the top 10, top 7, maybe, of offensive play callers. I don't think that that's unrealistic. I think he's still growing into the spot in some ways. I mean, just by absorbing more and more of probably McCarthy's influence. I mean, let's be clear. Like, Moore was calling a very different offense. Or Moore's fundamentals of his offense are very different than what McCarthy brings in. I mean, there's tons of crossover all over the league, and ultimately, if you study offenses, you'll learn that plays basically are run all over all types of offense. You can call a play this and this offense and call it that and this offense, but it's ultimately the same play. So a lot of it is about learning language. But I do think that, there is still some room to grow as far as learning a little bit more from McCarthy about West Coast concepts, more about the short passing game, more about finding ways to get people the ball on the move. Because right now you see a lot of attacking downfield and a lot of play action and taking advantage of superior wide receivers down the field for sure. I think that and Cooper obviously is one of the best slant runners in football. But I think that the Cowboys could still get a little bit better in the short passing game. And I think that, again, McCarthy coming from more of a West Coast offense, I think can kind of help promote that a little bit more. I also, again, would like to see the running backs being used more in the passing game as than just being outlets, right? Than just being dump offs. So those are areas where I think that he can kind of take a little bit more from what McCarthy may be able to give. But I do think that Moore has shown himself to be a very talented offensive coordinator, probably top 10 in the league.
All right, so I agree. I think he's certainly in the top 10. I was trying to think off the top of my head, like the guys that you would for sure take ahead of him, not for just coaches, but play callers, right? Like Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. And then that's kind of where it stops. I think I think
Arthur Smith is probably right there. Right?
Arthur Smith is a really good one. I want to see how he is as a head coach, because it's it's not tied together, but it might be a little bit more now that he has more responsibilities. But yeah, absolutely. After that, there's really not many that you take over Kellen Moore. And depending on the game, Landon, I might take Kellen Moore over some of these guys. I watched I watched the Cowboys-Eagle game just a couple days ago, the one with Ben DiNucci, and I am shocked. I came away even more shocked that game was as close as it was, considering how bad Ben DiNucci was. And Kellen Moore was doing everything possible to try to get that team competitive between double reverses and as many screens and trick plays. And he pulled
out all the tricks. All the tricks came out.
But the thing is, I love that he did it because he knew that he had to do it. In previous coaching staff, so I don't want to pick on anybody, Jason Garrett, but what they would have just tried to do is run the ball on first and second down and create manageable situations. Moore knew that wasn't the correct way to go because there's just no way they're going to be able to sustain 75-yard drives with Ben DiNucci at quarterback. So he did everything possible to create chunk plays. I just think he's phenomenal. I really do. I think we kind of forget, Landon, like there was a legitimate chance this offseason that like Kellen Moore could have left. Remember when we were talking about that in January and February?
Yeah.
I think that's partly why I'm so optimistic about this team. Kellen Moore is so good. You bring back Dak Prescott. It's really, really exciting. Any more comments on Kellen Moore?
Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott, I mean, the marriage together is the beating heart of optimism for this team. Like I think that they have a chance to be, and this is blasphemy because Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes exist. They have a chance to be the most successful combo of quarterback and offensive coordinator next year. I mean, I think if you look at what they were doing early before Dak got hurt and without some random glitch efficiency issues. I mean, they were putting up historic numbers early on. So I don't expect that to be any kind of different starting next year when they have their full complement of offensive line healthy and hopefully, another year in this system.
I mean, remember in 2019, this was the number one offense in the league in yards per game. And they've gotten better since then, at least on paper. So should be a fun offense. Let's take a quick break so I can tell you guys about Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at Bet Online. Get all the latest news, odds, and info on all your latest sporting news, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC. Before the next pitch, head over to Bet Online on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. Also want to tell you guys about Built Bar. This is a true story. That's not a lie at all. I actually ran out of Built Bars today, so I had to go to the store and get just something else, and I had another protein bar.
Why'd you do that?
My shipment, I actually ordered 2 boxes, and they don't come in until tomorrow. Yeah, that was a mistake. You always want to make sure you never run out of Built Bars. They're so good. I can't even explain it. Real chocolate, amazing flavors, just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste fantastic. Not like the other one I had today. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your next box. Again, that is BuiltBar.com.
Real quick, I just imagine you taking a bite of this protein bar and then just spitting out all this chalky material. They all taste like chalk outside of the Built Bar one.
It was so bland. It was not very good. It's not.
Give me that coconut brownie.
Coconut brownie. I actually have an order of coconut almond coming in. I'm really excited.
I gotta try that.
All right, Landon. So the Cowboys held an OTA practice on Monday. We're not going to get into all that because we weren't at practice. There was really no news coming out of that. But I guess we should talk about Dak, right? Dak was at practice throwing, which is good. Not surprising at all. To me, actually, Landon, the most surprising thing is, did you notice that both Tyron Smith and La'el Collins were working with the first team offensive line? And did you notice how slim and trim La'el Collins is?
I did notice that Lyle was bent over and his jersey had some
you didn't see
to it. It's like his tummy was tight, So Yeah, I mean, I mean, that shows you the level of obsession we have where we're paying that close attention to these guys.
To another man's
stomachs. Yeah, another man's stomach this early in the season.
We should be worried about our own, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, geez, I'm certainly not. I'm not talking about anybody else's stomach, I guess, for a long while. No, but these are great. These are great things for the Cowboys. I mean, obviously, the Dak news is incredibly encouraging. I don't think it's surprising to anybody who's been following, closely. This is right on track with what they've been describing with Dak, that he would be on time for OTAs. He'd be ready. I agree. The thing that we've heard less publicly about is about the offensive tackles and about their health. Yes. And so it's to see them out there, and this is and this is OTAs too. Like that's what I'm saying.
These are voluntary OTAs.
These voluntary
both the tackles out there.
That's great news. So I think that's super, super great news for Dak and for his health in the future, his continued health in the future. And the Cowboys' health as an offense. I think that without Lael and without Tyron, obviously the pass protection suffered greatly. But obviously so did the run game as well, which, I mean, compounded issues when you have a backup quarterback and you also can't run the football. It makes it incredibly difficult. So and not just those guys, but I mean, you're hoping that Blake Jarwin will be back and healthy sooner than later. It's fantastic for the Cowboys that day one of OTAs voluntary, that you've got these guys who and the other thing too to keep in mind that I think is great is that, better or worse, Tyron Smith's body got a whole year away from football. And I think so. Hopefully he's going to come back in a much better shape than he had been even previously. So, I think that I'm excited to see them in training camp and see exactly how they're moving around. But the fact that they were out there on day one of OTAs, that's nothing but fantastic sign for Cowboys fans.
All right, let's stay on that topic of OTAs. This one comes from our friend Tom at Blogging the Boys. Will teams like Dallas, who are apparently having regular OTAs with high attendance, gain any advantage over those that are cutting back significantly?
I think it's on an individual basis, right? Like, I think, it's like last year, right? Where the Cowboys, everybody missed OTAs last year, right? Yeah. But the Cowboys were at an even more disadvantage because they were transitioning defenses. They had a new coaching staff. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think that if you look at teams that are established or have a lot of continuity, missing an extra or 2 or 3 OTAs probably isn't going to kill them.
Nope.
But I think for teams that are switching coaching staffs, the teams that are going through philosophy changes on offense or defense, each one of those OTAs can be really valuable in just kind of getting pre-install work done and getting everybody up to speed on the playbook so that when real practices come, they hit the ground running. So that's really where I think you're going to notice a disadvantage is teams that are making changes on their offense or defense that have changed coaching staffs, simply because part of what OTAs is, and part of especially early OTAs, is about, okay, how do we practice? What does practice look like? What is the schedule at practice? How do we get from station to station and kind of learning all of that? And it may not seem like a lot, but the fact that they get to do that and they have some familiarity there can really optimize their practice time, which they don't have a ton of practice time. So, every minute counts, and those kind of can add up over time if you're, having to delay practice because people don't know what the hell they're going. It's that sort of, it's just kind of confusion that can actually hurt you in practice down the road. So there is an advantage, I think. But I think it's probably only over teams that are making kind of big changes like the Cowboys were last year, and the kind of difficult spot that they're being put in.
The Cowboys have had fantastic attendance, it sounds like, through all of OTA so far. It doesn't sound like anybody of note is really missing. I would also say the Cowboys have been kind of having unofficial OTAs practices anyways over the last couple of weeks, right? We've heard some rumblings that a certain Dallas Cowboy quarterback has a nice field in his backyard, which has a lot of workouts.
Cooper Rush is really got a nice
Cooper Rush. Yeah. Dak has been having a lot of these receivers and receivers from other teams in his backyard working out. And I think this just shows you they're really serious about not having a bad season. And I think it's just so encouraging that we don't have to worry about, hey, this guy is missing OTAs, this guy's holding out because of contract stuff. None of that stuff is happening. I think the Cowboys are poised for a good year because everything in the offseason is starting out fine. Next question, Landon. This is a good one from Gabs. Who do you think stands the best chance of getting their first Pro Bowl this year?
First Pro Bowl.
I mean, there's an easy answer, I think. And I think
did CD go to Pro Bowl last year?
That's the easy one, right?
Yeah, I would say that he's an easy one. Look, if Trayvon Diggs has a really good year, I wouldn't be surprised.
I got one.
Donovan Wilson. Donovan Wilson, continues to play the way, takes a step from where he was last year. I mean, just because he makes flash plays, and those are numbers. That could be a possible guy. Who's your guy?
So last year, Evan Ingram made the Pro Bowl, catching 63 passes for 600 yards and a touchdown. A single touchdown.
A single touchdown.
The NFC group of tight ends isn't great. You have George Kittle, but he struggles to stay healthy and likely playing with a rookie quarterback. You've got Kyle Pitts, and I'm sure he'll be close. Other than those two, it's not great. So if Blake Jarwin could have a season of 600 yards and 6 touchdowns, which I think is very, very realistic, and I think it's almost a floor, wouldn't shock me at all to see him make it.
What did Schultz have last year? So Schultz had 600 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. If I'm not mistaken.
He basically had the same number. He didn't have. Oh, he was on
the name.
I was gonna say he was on a bad team, but so was Evan Ingram. So I guess I mean, that one just wouldn't shock me at all because they take 3 tight ends every year, and tight ends around the league kind of suck. So that one wouldn't surprise. Let's take one more quick break, and we'll come back and we'll answer a really, really good Twitter question about the defense. But I want to tell you guys about Rock Auto. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts to customers online for 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or your daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brand, specifications, and prices that you prefer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today. All right, Landon, we got a really good question about the defense. I got to find who it was from because I didn't want to mess it up. Okay, it's from Clint. Why do the Cowboys continually draft corners and move them to safety rather than just drafting safeties? Because now they've done it with Izzy, the cornerback from South Carolina. They did it with Reggie Robinson last year. They've done it in the past. Why do you think under Will McClay, Stephen Jones, they've done this?
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that you often end up putting your safeties in the NFL in man coverage situations. So you want to find guys who are not going to be embarrassed or not going to embarrass themselves, I guess, in coverage if they get put into those situations. And obviously man coverage is a difficult skill set to necessarily unearth. So most of the guys who can play man coverage in college football are cornerbacks. You know, they don't really put you at safety in college if you're an elite cover guy, unless, you know, you're a known quantity at safety or you're
Fitzpatrick or something like that.
Yeah, that kind of. And I was just gonna say that's the other side. Is it unless you're at a major college where they already have elite corners and in you're specializing at safety. So I think that's part of it. And part of it is also that, and it's not just a Will McClay thing. I mean, I think Quinn came in with a long history of converting corners to safeties, and
Monte Casey's a perfect example, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think look, a lot of safeties are converts, and just throughout history, a lot of great safeties have been converts because the safety position in the NFL is different in a lot of ways than it is in the college football game. I mean, you really safeties in college football in a lot of ways are truly, go with their name. They are the safety valve. They usually are playing way off. They're playing, in the back of the defense so that they just don't get beat deep. And they don't really make a ton of plays. In the NFL, you're expecting at least a quality or a decent safety is going to be close enough to the line of scrimmage that they're actually going to be able to affect the game. Certainly have an effect in the run game. And then a lot of times, with the way modern football is, and with nickel being the new base, sometimes these safeties are having to walk down into the slot and cover slot receivers. Sometimes they're having to cover tight ends one-on-one. So there's just a ton of coverage specific stuff that has to get done at the safety position, kind of no matter what kind of defense you're playing. If you're playing a middle of the field closed type defense, even your strong safety, even the guy that's the box guy, he needs to have some kind of man skills to cover up on defense. And if you're playing split field coverage, middle of the field open, you're probably playing a lot of quarters. And if you're playing a lot of quarters, quarters is essentially man coverage when you have people running through your zone. So I think having that kind of man coverage skill set at safety is valuable, and finding it in a college safety is rare. So I think that they have to expand their pool of potential candidates out to cornerbacks, guys who may not be quite elite enough physically or maybe not talented enough to be full-time corners in the NFL, but that those skills could potentially translate with a little bit of seasoning into safety.
So, we've seen in the past that the Cowboys aren't opposed to going out and trying to get a top-end safety, right? They flirted with Jamal Adams forever. The same thing with Earl Thomas, who happened to be a college cornerback, by the way, just to add that in there. I think they've realized, hey, if we don't have an elite corner, rather than spending, let's say, a top 100 pick on a safety, let's just spend late round picks, because these guys are better, most of the time better at covering than what we can get early on in the draft. And I think also it's a kind of a trickle up from high school and college, right, Landon? Because if you can cover in high school, they're not going to put you at safety, right? They're going to put you up against the best receiver. And the same thing in college. Like, they're not going to waste you playing you 40 yards down the field. They're going to put you up against the best receiver. So I think the Cowboys realize that. I think there's a lot of ways that we can blame them for, their problems at safety, but they've clearly made a decision to go cheap at safety, and they've tried to find, inefficiencies in the market to fix that position. And they felt like drafting these corners in the 5th, 6th round that could potentially make the move over there isn't the worst way to do it. I'm really curious to see how it works out with Izzy. Obviously, it doesn't seem like it's going to work out with Reggie Robinson. He's back to corner, but it has worked out for KZ in the past. It has worked out for other corners. So let's see what Dan Quinn can do with this defense. I'm really interested.
And maybe Jordan Lewis.
Maybe Jordan Lewis.
Look! The guy came into the league as a nickel corner. They tried him outside. He was there. It just doesn't have the kind of athleticism that is required. But they put him in safety situations, and look at him shine. His skill set matches what they're asking him to do better, and he's kind of found a home. And I'm still hoping that they're going to kind of use him in that sort of hybrid role, because some players' skill sets really shine better when they're put into situations that are safety situations, right? Like whether that's as an overhang defender, as a slot corner, whatever, all the different hats that safeties can wear. You can definitely put some of these, former corner types into positions where they may be able to succeed a little bit better than when they're on the outside.
There's really no reason why Jordan Lewis can't be DeMonte Casey, right? He's bigger. He comes from a better school. I think he's more athletic, actually. I feel like their games are somewhat similar. Now, Casey's had more success because he's played more free safety, but I really don't see a reason why Jordan Lewis can't do a pretty good impression of Casey, and maybe that's what we'll see this year. All right, that's it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audacity, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mo.